Good morning. Welcome. Is everyone ready? Awake? Full of coffee? I'm not, so we'll see how this goes. So welcome. My name's 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗲𝗏. I'm here joined with my colleague, Collin. Welcome, Collin. You ready?
Hey, everyone. I'm super excited to talk about Microsoft Foundry for the next 45 minutes. It's going to be fun.
Wrong session.
Good, because I really don't know that much about it. So, yeah.
Cool. So we're going to talk about secure, compliant, and fast delivery with GitHub. So I come from the operational background, moved into development many years ago because I saw the light. And I was like, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to write code for 8 hours a day. We don't actually do that, do we? But we're going to talk about some cool stuff. And both Collin and I are from GitHub, and we're here to help you understand the full SDLC.
Awesome.
You ready?
Yep, let's do it.
So what are we going to talk about? Not Azure Foundry today, or is it Azure AI Foundry?
Microsoft Foundry now.
Okay, sorry, Microsoft Foundry. We're going to talk about the modern challenges we have in software delivery. And then we're going to talk about the platform foundation and really the developer experience. And at GitHub, we focus on the developer experience. Because the reality is, as a developer, you spend very little time writing code. You're doing other things. I like to call them the unfun things. And they're the time thieves. So we have to spend time waiting on compute, refactoring code, writing tests. We don't actually get to write code, which is why I became a developer, but no. So how do we unblock our teams, help them deliver faster, better? And at GitHub, we've been committed to this. Now, any of you here ever use Azure DevOps? Lots of you. Fantastic, me too. However, I also saw the light again, moved to GitHub, and that's why we're going to tell you how you can do that with GitHub today. So we like to think about the whole SDLC, and that starts with the idea, the inception. But we really focus on the developer experience, and that's what we're going to talk about today, doing that securely. Now, why developer experience? How many of you left a job because you loved it? No one. Great. Me either. So with that, we want to make sure that we enable our developers to do more. But actually, we need to focus on security and DevOps principles and practices. And actually, when you look at the application surfaces that we have today, they're the #1 attack vector that we have to face. We hear reports all the time of DDoS attacks, breaches, et cetera, and they're costly. How many of you took an Uber here today?
How about a Waymo?
Anyone on a Waymo? Yes. Waymos are great. They're automated, they're easy, but Waymo hasn't breached my data. But Uber has, twice. Why? They put a password in a plain text file. So we need to look at how we can help this and what this life cycle looks like.
So with this, there's the way that people have historically kind of managed within GitHub has been at the repository and the organization level with a little bit of control at the enterprise. We've noticed that this is really, enterprises fundamentally need a different way and a better way to kind of manage their environment at scale to make sure the controls are in place across the entire portfolio. So what we're going to take a look at today, for the first part at least, we really want to look at some of the new features that have come into GitHub Enterprise recently to really start building out that platform foundation. So the platform foundation, the idea and the concept of that is that if we're, as enterprise admins, if we're building things correctly, if we're protecting what we need to protect, then we're enabling our developers and our users to do the right thing by default. It's just easy for them to do the right thing because we have those controls in place. A recurring theme of what we're going to talk about as well is really based on GitHub Well Architected. So if you haven't seen GitHub Well Architected, definitely recommend checking it out. This is written by employees of GitHub and our partner ecosystem. This is really providing kind of a design thinking, a more critical, opinionated approach to how we should approach governance, security, configurations at scale, managing repos in our portfolios at scale. A wealth of information there on that site. What we're looking at is essentially a hierarchy model. So we want to be able to manage identity and access. We want targeted dynamic governance that applies where we need it to go. And we want it to be automatic. Because again, if we want our developers just to be doing the right thing easily without having to jump through hoops and processes and procedures, it should just be automatic. It should be the easy thing to do. Over particularly the course of this last year, GitHub's had a number of releases, kind of an umbrella theme that we call enterprise roles, permissions, apps, and teams. And unfortunately, a bane of technology field is people are horrible at naming things. So it's not really a catchy name that rolls off the tongue, but this is really the theme that we have. Wrapped up inside of this, we have a lot of things that we've released over the course of this year to really kind of improve and fundamentally change how enterprises can manage their estate. The first thing that we released was enterprise applications. So GitHub apps have been in the ecosystem for quite some time, but now we have the ability to install GitHub apps at the enterprise layer. Being at the enterprise layer prevents and removes a lot of the manual toil and configuration that we had in place previously to kind of control and manage across many different organizations or repositories. And importantly, this also starts giving us capabilities for more permissions and controls that we can implement at the enterprise layer itself, which we'll touch on a bit more. The next big thing which came out just in the last few weeks in public preview is the concept of enterprise teams. Well, some of the things came out a few weeks ago. Some of it was before. But enterprise, for a long time, teams have been a part of GitHub at the organization layer. That's how we group our developers together. That's how we assign access. Now we have this concept of enterprise teams at the enterprise level. This helps us to really kind of, using the enterprise, we can start managing our users and managing the identities and what they're associated with all in one spot rather than organization by organization by organization. There are a couple, this is a public preview, so I just wanted to have the slide in here really quickly. There are a couple limitations right now that you might see. So enterprise teams today, they're not just a replacement for organization teams. We're not going to leave this session and just go rip out all our organization teams and convert them to enterprise teams. Some of those features are not there yet for the collaborative side of things. And we do have some scaling limits in place. That's just so that we can kind of safely implement this and roll it out across the infrastructure. As this gets to like the general availability, these other features will be in place and the scaling limits will be increased to kind of support the largest enterprises that are out there. So enterprise apps, enterprise teams, that's kind of the who. We have the who, what, and how. Apps and teams, they're managing actors. They're managing identities because apps are actors. They're things that are doing stuff in our environment. The what, this is when we start getting into enterprise roles. So the role capability, again, was previously at the repo and the organization level. Now we have this capability at the enterprise layer itself to really start building and defining in one spot how we want to set up our environment. The first part of this is we have the concept of enterprise custom roles. So we have new fine-grained permissions that are available at the enterprise layer to start delegating control rather than just giving out complete enterprise admin. Because before, we really had three roles. We had, you were a member, you were a billing manager, or you were an admin who had access to do everything. That's not quite enough to really scale with what organizations need. There's also a concept of predefined roles at the enterprise layer. So that billing manager, that was a predefined role before. We have an enterprise app manager who can control our new enterprise apps. But also very recently, we have an enterprise security manager. This is something that a lot of people have been really excited about because this allows us to assign a security manager role to a team or an individual. And that user can then start seeing all of our security alerts and configurations and has read access across the entire enterprise and portfolio. This is something that wasn't there before, just this read access and the ability to manage at one spot rather than going organization by organization to set this up. So we've seen a lot of traction with this so far. People are really excited on it. Enterprise roles, again, the who, what, how. With the what, enterprise roles today, when we assign these, one of the biggest use cases that we've seen so far with the new permissions that we have, like fine-grained permissions that are rolling out, one of the biggest ones came out just a couple weeks ago with Copilot fine-grained permissions. So we can assign the ability to have like an AI administrator who has access to view the reports, change the policy settings for Copilot, but they're not a full admin. And that's really the vision. You'll see more and more of these permissions rolling out over time, but that's kind of what we're building upon. We want to be able to have fine-grained permissions to give the right access to the right people in one spot, not all our different organizations. Another new thing which came out is organization custom properties. So we've had custom properties at the repository level. This allows us to assign metadata within GitHub. In the year 2025, being able to assign metadata doesn't seem like it'd be that groundbreaking of a thing, but it really helps on the GitHub side of things. Before, we had to use like YAML or JSON files in a repo, or we had to use topics, which was really painful to start hitting the search API and do that across everything. Repo custom properties changed the game and let us start classifying things with real metadata. Now we can do that at the organization level as well. So that starts unlocking more possibilities. If we can start classifying our organizations with metadata, if we can start creating teams and assigning roles at the enterprise layer, then maybe GitHub's longstanding advice of limit your orgs because it's hard to manage multiple orgs. Now we can start expanding upon that. We can start creating things in one spot and dynamically targeting what we want to control. Speaking of targeting, what we have in place with the enterprise teams, enterprise apps, organization custom properties, these are all fully supported inside of rule sets. Rule sets are one of the main governance items that we have within GitHub, a very powerful governance item to really give us that focused control, who can do what, who's allowed to bypass, and what governance do we have to have in place. Rule sets are really one of those biggest spots where we create that governance mechanism. Bringing everything back together, so enterprise security configurations, these aren't the newest thing. They are relatively new in the grand scheme of things. But with GitHub Advanced Security products, the concept of security configurations allows us to start, similar to rule sets, we can configure policies for how we want advanced security to be configured, and we can apply that across all the repos in an organization. Now we can bring that up to the enterprise level, and we can set baselines for our entire enterprise. That way we're not relying upon an org admin to go through and set things up. We're not hopping through org by org and making sure they're all set up. If we have minimum baselines that we want to put in place, we can set those at the enterprise layer. We can take it further, and we can enforce them and not allow them to be changed. That's a little bit of a balancing act, but we have options in place where we did not have options before, which is huge. So with that, let's see a little bit of how this works. So April, I think you had some stuff you were going to show.
I am going to show some things. So Collin and I have built out this repository. Now the cool thing is we can, excuse me, we can template this and scale this across our enterprise and our organization. So Collin has very kindly set up a security policy for us with some custom policies, but we need to push some code. So I'm going to be the developer. Collin's going to be the one in charge, right, Collin?
I guess if we're going that route.
All right, we've got a busy day ahead. So we're going to do a few demos for you all today. And at this first one, I've made some changes. How many of you all love writing documentation? I see like 2 hands. That's impressive. I don't. Thank you, though. I appreciate you do. But we need better documentation. How do we hand over projects? How do we communicate? How do we collaborate? So I've written a little bit of an update in our README, and I'm going to push these changes into GitHub. Now, when I go to commit these changes, I need to put in a commit message. Now, we're not going to use the C word too much today, Copilot. However, we are going to use Copilot because we've built in some really cool guardrails into the system that help us do a little bit more as a developer. So instead of maybe committing my changes, I can do a few things here. I have a code review button, and I can ask Copilot to review my code. So Copilot's going to review the code before I send up that code. Now, why would I do that? I work async. Collin is based here in the US. I'm actually based in Europe. So I'm awake and he's sleeping, and I'm not going to wake him up to do a code review. So Copilot's going through it, and it's going to pull out some things I might need to change, but I'm going to ignore it because I'm a bad developer. But I'm also going to ask Copilot to write my commit message, because half the time when I write a commit message, I'm going, please work, or something along those lines. It's not very informative. So I'm going to go ahead and commit my code up. I'm going to go ahead and commit my code. We're in a rush. We have lots to do today. We're going to sync those changes up, working from our IDE. Now,
oh, you got an error.
Of course I got an error. What did we do wrong? Oh, well, I went to push my code up, and I must make a pull request. Now, it's declined because I violated a rule. Now, as a developer, that really frustrates me. But it's protecting the main branch. We're not just pushing code up as we shouldn't. We've put some of those things in. So I need to go back and configure myself into a working branch. Now, I am working in what's called a GitHub code space. For those of you watching, this looks like VS Code, and it effectively is your VS Code IDE in the cloud. It runs in a secure development environment. So if I go to our repository, instead of cloning our code, because that takes a long time, I can spin up a GitHub code space. So I can very simply put a code space there. I have the option to create a new code space with options. Now you're thinking, why use a code space? I'm on a PC, he's on a Mac. And how many times do we say as developers, it worked on my machine, right? So I didn't want to use Collin's Mac because I'm Mac adverse, sorry. So I can create this code space very simply. I can give it compute. I can tell it where to spin up. US West is our closest data center. Now I sit in Europe, so Europe West is usually the one I run it through. But also I have compute. I can set it and go, right, I want 2 cores, 8 gigs of RAM. And actually, I can scale that up. So if I'm running that compute, I can scale it up. So how many times on our machines do we have maybe an out-of-date machine that runs out of compute? Happens to me all the time when I run tests locally. So this avoids this. Now at GitHub, we build GitHub using GitHub. So when we build the github.com website that you know, see, and love, we use GitHub code spaces. Because also think about where your data is sitting. As a developer, I'm traveling around the world. And if I clone my code to my machine, I have to configure it, I have to get it ready, I have to do all these things. And what if something happens to my machine in that time? I work with a lot of customers that are like, we have to abide by EU law or US laws where their data residency is. But you're letting your developers take that code on their devices. And a lot of our customers use third-party contractors. How do you control that? So this is a secure environment that I'm coding from. And the other thing is, when I go up to this configuration, every GitHub code space uses a default dev container. It has a bunch of basic pre-built tools in it, but we can declare exactly what our developers need access to. This is a really simple dev container file that we have built for this. Actually, Collin built it, but we can tell them what extensions they require. Now, they can also bring their own extensions, but it means we have that consistency. We can also add linting tools, other customizations. We can add security protocols around access to the ability to read or write GitHub Actions workflows or other things within this code base. So that's a really good way to give security boundary and protect your data and where it's going. Did you want to do something to the code base?
Yeah, so when we saw just now, my screen, cool. So we saw April tried to do a push. And April's a member of this organization, a member of the repository, not an admin. I'm an admin. I have admin access to the enterprise, to the org, to the repo, everything.
Why can't I have admin?
I mean, we can talk after this, I suppose.
Okay.
But I'm an admin. April got blocked by a rule as a developer. If I want to come through as an admin and say, you know what, I really want to jazz this README file up a little bit, I'm going to add Node.js app location, just in case somebody doesn't know what app is short for. Cool. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to get my commit. Oh, wait, I can't. Even as an enterprise admin, an organization admin, the person who wrote this rule, I cannot violate this rule. I do not, because the rule set is defined in such a way that I do not have permission to bypass this rule. That is the power of rule sets. That's the power of the governance that we're enforcing. We declare our rule sets, and with that in place, we know exactly who can do what, where, which is very, very helpful. If we do have things in place where we have like a bypass capability, that is something that we can have that's commonly in place. Just to kind of show what this looks like from the rule set level. So I have a code space as well. I prefer blue color theme, sorry. But I'm just going to go through everything that we talked about. So enterprise teams, enterprise apps, custom roles, creating rule sets, all that stuff at the enterprise layer. We can configure that through the GitHub UI. We can also configure that via the API, via the REST API. I will call out in case there's sharp eyes. We do not yet have the REST API to create a custom role. That's coming though. That'll be on the road to general availability. But for managing large estates, having configuration as code, infrastructure as code, that way we're not relying on humans to configure things correctly through the UI. If there's a change that needs to be made, we can document that. We can do that, all of this as code. That's enterprise scale right there. What all this just set up. So this is my enterprise view. I'm an enterprise admin in Avocado Corp. Inside of here, I can see, if I drop into my People tab, this is where we start discovering our new Enterprise Teams capability. Inside of my Enterprise Teams, we have a number of them that are inside of here. You can see anything that I named as a human has the word clever in it because I like making terrible dad jokes.
Because you're clever?
No, I wouldn't go that far. But we can also see via the API, this is the team that I just made. This team was created. I added April and myself as members of this team via the API. I programmatically assigned this team with access to Clever.org with a happy little cloud. And I went ahead and assigned a custom role to this team as well. So all these tools that we have, we can define them and create them. I can see that through the UI. We can manage it through the API. Having that capability, again, in 2025, we should be able to manage things from the API. But it's a foundation that we have to be able to manage things at scale. So with this, I should also say that enterprise teams, we can assign them via identity provider. So if I'm using Entra ID or Okta, I can use Skim to automatically assign people to my teams. Some people prefer that route. Some people say, you know what, I want my identity team to manage everything about identity and let them talk to the auditors and all of that, and we'll just link up the teams in GitHub. Some folks are like, you know what, I don't really talk to my identity team very much, so I want them to send the users over, but I'll handle the associations. We have the power to do both, whichever one works best and makes the most sense for your enterprise. Inside enterprise roles, this is where we can go through and from the UI side, we can create new custom roles. I will say, right now, you'll see that at the enterprise layer, the permissions that we can assign, these are enterprise level permissions. So when I'm in today's landscape at least, when I create an enterprise role, I can assign enterprise level permissions. There's a lot I can do here. I can assign like identity permissions to just give to the identity team. Like I mentioned before, we can assign Copilot permissions, but all of these additional fine-grained permissions that we have now at the enterprise layer give us a lot of flexibility in what we're doing. In the future, we will have the ability with custom roles to add organization and repo level permissions directly to these roles as well. Because that enterprise security manager role, it has all of that. And that is coming to custom roles as well. But really where this all kind of comes together is inside of my policies section. A little bit of a loading delay.
The internet's fine.
Fine, I'll just dance over here for a second. There we go. All right. Inside of our policies, most of the policies that exist at the enterprise layer, they're kind of toggles. This thing's on, this thing's off, or I want to allow my org admins to decide whether they want to turn it on or off. The repository section's different. Inside of our repository section, we have repository policy rule sets. These allow us to configure things like who can actually create, delete, or transfer a repo within our enterprise's organizations. We can target these with custom properties and we can have the allow list, the bypass actors, and all of that. Inside of our repository code rule sets, this is where we go through and actually configure some of those more powerful settings. So this Ignite 2025 BRK108 baseline, again, great at naming things in technology. This is that rule that April and I just encountered. I allowed Dependabot and Copilot to be able to bypass this rule, but they're the only ones who can bypass it. I selected my clever org name manually. I can actually change that though. I want to do a dynamic list by property. So I want to say any organization that is set up with the property Ignite to a value of true, that's what I want to target. And I can see, oh, hey, this is going to automatically add clever org name as well. Great. But now I don't have to worry about static mappings. As long as my metadata is set correctly, my targeting applies the way it's supposed to. I can see from my repository targets, I'm already using metadata. I'm already using custom properties. This way, anytime anything is set up, it just works the way we expect it. All these, I won't go through every one of these, don't worry. But all of these different rules that we have in place, these are like the baselines of governance for how developers are working with code in their repositories. Like making sure that we have different compliance standards in place. Who's allowed to push to specific branches? What checks have to be in place? What tests absolutely have to run before we're allowed to make a change? We can also restrict things like we have secret protection, which blocks our secrets being pushed. We can do that with other things as well. We can say nobody's allowed to make changes to the GitHub workflows directory. We can see that here. This is an example where it's like if I'm using actions in my enterprise, but I don't want my developers to be changing the settings because I'm in a strict regulated environment, I can have a push rule which prevents anybody who's not on the bypass list from ever pushing a change to GitHub that touches a file in the GitHub workflows directory. So now I have complete governance over who can change what with actions, which is extremely powerful. Wrapping this all up, again, I can see from here from the UI and also from the API, if I look over the last month, I guess we'll go with. Oh, code insights, sorry. I was looking at code rule sets. So I can see this is the log of my rule sets in action. I can see April just had a failure right here. April tried to do a push, and it didn't work. In the event that I, as an administrator or somebody who was on a bypass list, if I use that break glass, if I bypassed a rule, that shows up here as well. So we have an audit log of everything, all these rules that we have defined. Here's the paper trail to back it up. This is what we can show to internal, external auditors, compliance teams. This is how we know the governance we defined via code is being enforced.
Cool.
So with all of that, this is kind of what we have wrapped up as the platform foundation. The goal of this is to provision, define, configure, identity, and access. We want to target our governance to exactly where it needs to go, whether that be everywhere or whether that be assigned to metadata that we need. And we want it to be automatic. We want it to be easy.
I like easy. Well, let's write some code. So before we write some code, I want to talk about why we're doing what we're doing. And I talked about the developer experience, and I want to talk about why we're shifting security left. When we work with DevOps principles and mindset, we want to do things earlier and often in the process. We want to fail fast. Why do we want to do that? Because it costs less to do these things in development. So all these guardrails and things we're putting in cost us less money than a breach. How many of you have been through a breach? And you're all here to tell the tale. Congratulations. But it's an expensive endeavor. Your customers lose trust in you. Your teams lose trust in you, and it's a heck of a battle to get back there. So we want to do things early and often, but we want to enable developers. And I'm going to go the wrong way on the slide first, and then we're going to learn how to click a button. So we're going to go through what it looks like to to plan, to actually write some code, to verify it, deploy it, and operate it. So we've seen how to set up these guardrails, and there's a lot we can do, there's a lot we configure, but let's
we have 25 more slides to go through, right?
Oh, we're not doing slides.
Oh.
We're doing live demos. Everyone okay with a live demo? Yes. Good, me too. So we're going to see this in action. We'll provide the slides for everyone after for reference if you want to look at these different things we're going to speak about, but I'd rather just show you what it looks like from a developer point of view. So we're back in our repository. We have our code space running. And now we have the option to write some code. So we tried to push some code to our main branch. That didn't work so well. But we have a lot to do today. So I did go ahead and write a README. If I go into the Issues tab, Issues is equivalent to those of you that use Azure boards today. Actually, it's not the same as Azure boards. That's projects, GitHub projects. But the issues are like your tasks that you would do in Azure DevOps. So I've written a few issues today that we want to do. We have a few feature enhancements, and Collin has given me a lot of work. Now, as a developer, this means we have a lot to do and not a lot of time in our day. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to our first issue. Now, not only can I see this in the github.com UI, but we need to meet where developers work, and that's in their IDE. So I'm going to go back to our IDE. We have our JavaScript file here for our web app. Now, we can see in the code comments in the bottom right-hand corner that actually Copilot found some issues in our code review. So we should have fixed that. We'll fix that later. That's a later problem, but I want to look at some of the issues we already have open. Now, I can see these here on the left-hand side. I can see all the pull requests and all the issues. So I open up an issue, if I scroll over it. Now, this web app shows ASCII pictures of cats.
I mean, you know, we have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I do prefer the dogs.
I'm a dog
I
person.
support this feature request.
I'm a dog person. So I asked it to do dogs. So I'm going to go into the feature request. I'm just going to go back to the github.com UI, but I can see it from this side here where I want to enable the dogs feature. And I've actually opened a pull request here. I can click on it, and it will show the pull request within the IDE. So I do have a single pane of glass experience here in our IDE. This is available in Visual Studio Code, and again, I'm working in a GitHub code space. So I can see everything that's happening from this place and point of view. But I actually want to look at what this issue says. So I've actually assigned this to Copilot because I want to work a little bit asynchronously, and Collin has very kindly added the coding agent to let it do things. So I've created this. We can see that I've created the issue. We can see the GitHub Actions bot is responding to us, and it's done a thing. Copilot has drafted a pull request for us. Now, whether that's myself as a developer or Copilot, it will show us the changes that it's done. It's taken screenshots of...
ASCII renders beautifully on this screen, by the way. I'll just say that right above you.
It doesn't. Doesn't. But that's okay. The original output I didn't like. I have full traceability of what the original prompt was. I also told Copilot I didn't like it. So if I want to tell Copilot to adapt, or I want to tell my colleague, all I have to do is at them. So I added Copilot and said, make dog in 1.2 look more like a dog. And I asked for a Great Dane, because I'm biased, and maybe a Labrador. So it's modified our code for us. I'm going to do this pull request review. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Now, if I go all the way down to this pull request, we can see that every pull request have some approvals for us to run. Now, these are manual approvals. I'm going to go ahead and kick them off for the sake of time, but we're also running some code scanning. So I'm going to run these approvals. It's going to run a dependency review, and that's going to run dependency on the code that we're calling, and it's going to run a security practices check. Now, with this, it's also done a code scanning check. It's using CodeQL to analyze our code. So what does this look like in real life? What is it doing? It's running GitHub Actions workflows so that our branch is protected, our code's getting scanned, and we're not submitting code that we shouldn't submit.
And our secure compliance check, which is running as an enterprise required workflow, by the way. So that's not even configured in this repo. That's something that we enforce at the enterprise layer, saying any pull request, this has to run to make sure we're following these procedures. And it just runs.
So it's going ahead and running. For those of you, you can see that our test validations have just ran, and our test integration. We're going to build a container. We're building a container image, and what we're also going to do is then we're going to deploy this to the cloud. I want to deploy this to AWS and Azure together, not asynchronously, but together, synchronously. And then once it goes through that, I want to deploy it to prod. So a couple things we're doing here. We've created workflows to test our code, put in security practices. We've put in manual gates that myself, Collin, or other people in our team have to approve. And then we're running all these checks as it goes through. Now, while this task is running, I'm pretty confident I can do some other code. So I'm going to go back to our issues. I did another issue because I thought I was being really funny. This web app's written in JavaScript, but I like Golang. And actually, why do I like Golang? Because I think it compiles better, I think there's better concurrency, and we really want to scale this. And I also just don't know JavaScript very well.
It's faster to say as well, so.
Okay, so I'm going to assign this to Copilot. And a couple things here we can do. So when I assign it to Copilot, Copilot cannot approve this pull request, the draft pull request. So that's some of the guardrails we have in. And again, just for the sake of time, I can add other context, other prompts to this. So I'm going to let it do its thing. Now, this is all going to run in the background, and we have to find other things to do. So while that's all running, I want to run through the security checks that are happening, because as I'm pushing code, because I did try to do some naughty things in my first little demo, let's see what's happened. So it's running these scans that we saw. It's running CodeQL scans, and it's giving this overview in our security tab. Now, we can alert people when these things happen. Now, we do a dependency scan on every single pull request in this repository. Dependabot's going to tell us what dependencies we're using, because about 60% of organizations are consuming some sort of open source software. So how do we maintain it? So this is going to give us a full report. It's going to give us some suggested fixes, gives us CVE outputs and reports, and it gives us that full traceability. So we can fix some of those issues. I also know that we have some code scanning issues. I've already assigned one to myself today. I'm going to go down and find it. We use a lot of tagging. Now, why do we use tagging? For organization and tracking. So I can see here that we have an unpinned tag for non-immutable actions workflow, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. This was working this morning, and it's not. Let's find another one. Let me try this one. Right. I have the security fix that we pushed a few hours ago. I'm going to ask Copilot Autofix to generate the issue. So I'm using Copilot in very different places, and I promise we're not talking about Copilot all day, but I want to talk about some of the guardrails we have, but the ability for it to help us do some of these things. Copilot's going to give us a fix. Let's see what it does. And with this, I can commit this to a new branch or commit it directly to the branch. I'm going to use a new branch because I'm a good developer this time. And it gives me a branch name. That's fine. It will fit our naming conventions. I can give it a description, and it's going to open up a pull request. So let's see. We're doing 3 different things. We're changing our ASCII to dogs. We're converting the whole website to Golang, because why not? And then we're doing some security fixes, all in a day's work. So this is running through. We can see immediately as I've submitted this fix, Collin has to review it. Collin is the human behind this. He's part of that manual gate that we need to have. So this is all running, it's running more checks, and we can see that every single submission we have, every pull request has to follow these build practices. So let's see how our ASCII art is doing. So we notice here, before you hit go, don't get excited, we need to review the deployment. Yeah, go ahead and do it. Push the big red button, let's deploy to prod. So what does this look like, this actual workflow that we're doing? I'm going to show you all, because we're doing a lot of things here. Now, we can make all this content available for you all later when we're not doing a live demo. But we're running an actions workflow. So we have triggers on this actions workflow. On any pull request, then we define what files these changes are coming from, and then we're running a few different jobs. We declare our node version. We can auto-build this. We don't want to do that. We're building a container. We're then sending it to our GitHub container registry. You can also send this to the Azure container registry, even things like the Docker registry. So when we do that, we create the login. And notice how everything here is created with secrets. We're not exposing any of our secrets like bad developers, because sometimes we do that. And then from there, we're extracting metadata. Again, exactly what Collin spoke about. We can track more things with that. Then once that image is built and pushed, which we saw in the workflow, it's past all that. We can then attest the image. How many of you have heard about artifact attestations? A couple people. Oh, okay. Well, I'll show you what those look like in just a minute. And then from there, we do our deployment to development environment in Azure. We're using environments to protect production. So we're going through all this, we're putting all the right things, and we're outputting that URL as well, so we can test it, we can verify it. We're getting our hands into that. Then we're deploying to AWS. And then we have this really cool thing down here called a deployment summary. I can see the output of what's actually happening. So I'm going back to our workflow here. We can see that all the steps have successfully gone through. We have green. I like it when deployments are all green. So not only have we gone through this, we've had some manual checks. The whole thing took about 5 minutes to run all of our tests. Fun fact for your Azure DevOps users out there, the Azure DevOps team uses small running functional tests, and every single pull request runs over 50,000 unit tests. At GitHub, we run over 12 to 13,000 unit tests on a lot of our code bases. So we're running these fast running unit tests. So notice here that our build's gone through. I showed you one of the actions in the workflow creates an attestation. I'm going to go ahead and click on this attestation. Now, the attestation means that you verify your build. It means that no one can tamper with it, and if they do, you have evidence of it. It means that what you actually built is what you're actually deploying.
Who here has some, I won't ask which government, but who has some sort of government identification as to who they are? Like, that's almost everybody, a driver's license, a passport, anything like that. Same concept for attestations.
So yeah, so we can get all that verifiable information. We can download it. We can verify the attestation. We could actually run it in our GitHub Actions workflow and add in a verify step here. It helps walk us through it. So it gives us all that build config. So we know exactly what we built, or what is getting deployed is actually what we built. We have a lot of customers that have asked for this. You can also get SALSA level 3 compliance with attestations now. So that's fully baked into what we've deployed. Also with that, if we go back into, we can see these are all the attestations that we have listed out. And if I go back into our workflow that has run, Where did it go? Build and deploy. We also have a full deployment pipeline summary. So what does this tell us? It tells us that not only we can see the little check marks that everything went through and we had to put eyeballs on it, but it gives us a nice output. We can send this report into an email or to another colleague, but we can see exactly what image was built and pushed within our system. It gives us the image name, gives us the SHA codes, tells us it was generated and published. We can also get the URLs for the website. We can see deploy time. We can see the status that it's up and running. We can see how many environments were ran, all the deployment commands, and everything was completed successfully. And then we can see that we had those deployment protection rules. We see Collin's very pretty face. He approved the production environments and commented, "This looks great." So we have that full end-to-end visibility in that deployment. Even though all these guardrails are configured, we can bake them into automation as we go ahead and submit that through. Now, we have a couple minutes left. Do we have any more time to do cool things? Let's see.
I think we do.
Really? Well, we could see what our Go conversion is doing.
Ooh.
So these also need approval. So again, this is going to be the same process with the other checks that are in place. And if we go back to our security thing, oh, I also noticed we pushed a password, Collin.
Oh no. Oh, that was before your time too, so that must have been me.
Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we've scanned that repository for secrets. We could also put in push protection so that your developers don't push up those secrets as well. And all those code QL scans that are running, I'm going to go ahead and get into that. These are where these alerts stem from. I'm just going to pick another one and see if it's running. No, it's not. That's okay. The other autofix one ran. Let's see what that's doing. It didn't seem to commit to the new branch, or did it?
Oh, I see it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Not enough coffee for me today. There we go. Let's check that security workflow. So I asked Copilot to fix it for me. It's done the security practices check, reviews requested, and then it's ready to deploy. So that is exactly the security features we need. So again, it's running all those exact same checks we ran before. We've kept that consistent from build to build to build. Now, did you have anything else to show? Are you approving? You approving?
I was just approving for you.
Thank you so much. So what did we really do? We did a lot of things here. We made some code changes. We showed our secure development environment. We showed how we can block those changes. Now, all of these things that Collin very kindly configured this repository, we can apply to all our different repositories and scale that in our organizations using templates. So we were able to look at developer security. Where do developers write their code? We secured their endpoints, i.e. their devices. We looked at things using pre-commit hooks that prevented vulnerabilities from going up. We looked at all the security things. We had build security baked into that. So we had dependency scanning, we had secrets, we had tests, all in those GitHub Actions workflows. And then we looked at that supply chain security. So actually what I didn't show that we just released as well are immutable releases. So if you create a release package, actually I can go to it real fast. When you create a release package, it means it cannot be altered as well. So notice we have the attestations that show that what was built is actually what you expect to be built. And then when we create a release, we can't edit it. So if I go to edit this release, I can change the title and the notes, but I can't edit the tag or the assets on this immutable release. So that's really critical to protecting your data and all the releases you have. We also used our Actions workflow to isolate our environments. This is good development practices. And we looked at runtime execution. So Collin showed us really good ability to use least privilege access execution. We can do network isolation. The other thing we didn't show today, but you can configure, is you can configure private networking from your GitHub Actions workflows into your Azure environments. And the other thing you can configure, what was the other thing you can configure?
Custom images.
Custom images for the VMs for those hosted runners. So there is a lot of governance and enforcement that you can put in that helps your users get more out of the platform. Now with that, we want to give you all some resources because everybody loves learning. So in the age of AI, in the age of everything changing, whether you're using different tools, you're using GitHub, we have our learning pathways. The learning pathways are free for you to use. You can learn everything you want about GitHub. We have learn.github.com. Any questions around the Copilot capabilities that we've baked into a lot of this end-to-end lifecycle is the GitHub Copilot Trust Center. That is a great way to look at what compliance, what rule sets, what guardrails are put in place. And also, if you want to start learning how to use GitHub, we have the GitHub Copilot. We have the Mastering GitHub Copilot workshop that is free for you all to take. So some good resources for you all. And we did lots of code changes. Is there anything else we need to do today?
We have our governance in place. I mean, everything that we did, we knew that we were following the rules. So that's what matters.
Exactly. So thank you all. Really appreciate your time. If you could take a moment and rate our session, that'd be really important. We like feedback. It makes us all better day in and day out. And let's change the world one pull request at a time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.